how can we ensure that we are using multilateralism to, to address youth issues and all that. So I would want to hear what you have for us on the theme and probably any other issue or any other thing that you want with the young people to hear. So this is up to you. Feel free, like within 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Let us hear you, Miss Teresa Tolulope. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for the introduction. I believe you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, I can.
All right, great. And thank you so much also, Ambassador Carlos, for the invitation. Please permit me to stand on existing protocol. I was also listening in yesterday, and I thoroughly enjoyed the high-level conversation as well. So with my little keynotes, I am going to start by giving an overview to help us see where we have come from, and then I will speak on the theme briefly. In life, the only thing that is constant is change. Over the past decade, youth leadership and representation has evolved. We went from having special global and regional youth representatives to seeing growing youth movements. For example, the Fridays for Future, which has significantly shaped the climate movement and also encouraged and motivated young people globally to lead. This significant landmark has popularized phases like youth power, youth-led, and basically the major movements on giving young people a seat at the table. However, in 2022, the youth movement globally experienced a radical reset. Recognizing the relevance of intergenerational dialogue was not just an encouragement to build isolated tables for young people, but a reminder to integrate different generations on the same table, while recognizing that youth agency is first rooted in humanism, as young people are, first of all, humans and have a right to life, have a right to speak, and have a right to be heard and treated as equals. 2022 was indeed a clarion call to merge the wisdom of elders with the innovative technologies of the present and the future in tackling difficult challenges. Now, between 2022 and 2025, which is just 3 years, we are at yet another significant juncture in terms of youth leadership. Here, we are experiencing a more radical change than the change we experienced in 2022. The role of young people in multilateral institutions is a major theme, although that is not even the theme for International Youth Day. And I'm sure young people are wondering, why is this thing even important? And that's what I'm going to address. This 2025 conversation about multilateralism and youth involvement in multilateralism is a major call, a clarion call, and also as well a global call for us to pivot from traditional training models and programs to specialized diplomatic trainings and shadow programs that recognize that the future is now the present. So many times we've spoken about giving young people a seat at the table, but we are getting to a point where the oldest Gen Z is currently 28 years old, and the average of us are currently 25. So we are no longer just young people, but we are becoming young professionals. To properly address this topic, we must, however, address the following challenges, and I just have 3 of them here. The first is youth tokenism, and specifically for this one, I picked a particular area or aspect of youth tokenism. We must address the unrealistic expectations in expecting youth to be volunteers, especially in the global south, expecting young people to be overworked, to drive high-impact projects while we remain unrecognized and undercompensated, and suddenly expecting us to show up globally and regionally to represent at intergovernmental processes just to meet a quota system. The second gap we must significantly address is the knowledge gap. I would like to use a quote to explain this one. A poor child will be called a poor child from a poor background, and suddenly one day that child will be referred to as a poor man. This quote illustrates the relevance of different parties in investing in diplomatic trainings for the next generation. So it shows that there's a role for policymakers to help in investing in young people from their various localities. And it also shows that there's a responsibility on we ourselves as young people in taking responsibility to invest in our personal and professional development as the world is rapidly changing. The third is official development assistance. Clearly, 2025 has been a very significant year and will not go down in history without conversations around aid. There's the need for funding, because it's important to note that Although funding comes into developing countries, more funding actually leaves developing countries than it comes into. And I'll just briefly explain this one. It happens in terms of the choice of technical investment that we choose to make. So you have aid coming in most of the time from the global north to the global south, and you have global south countries choosing professionals from the global north to handle the consultation or program design, which takes up the bulk of the funding budgets and leaves peanuts for implementation. So the money is still ending up going there, because if you employ someone from the global north to do projects in the global south, at the end of the day, they're going to end up paying their tax back at home and not in the global south. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And in addressing this, we need to understand and redesign the power dynamics around the aid model by getting young people to become more aware, to be more involved in shaping the future of aid. Now, in speaking on the theme, which is youth addressing multilateral cooperation through technology and partnerships, I would also like to start with a quote. One of the best ways to tell a season is by looking at the weather, and a safer way to tell a season is by looking at the signs. What this means is, because it rains once does not necessarily mean it's rainy season, and because the sun is up does not necessarily mean it's dry season. From the signs, however, it is very obvious that we are at a very significant juncture in history that we have never been at, or we have similarly been at, but in a different way. My generation will succeed as young people, where we identify the things that have failed before and we find a way to fix them as they reoccur in this current generation. We will also succeed in identifying transferable wisdoms from what has worked in similar situations and applying the wisdoms in these situations. So it's not a direct thing of copy and paste. It's like when you're writing a curriculum vitae for a role, you pick your transferable skills, and that's the same thing we need to do here in picking transferable wisdom. The theme, advancing multilateral cooperation through technology and partnership, first of all, questions our understanding of socialization. As humans and as young people, we are very social beings. We need one another to survive, and in diplomacy, we need each other to thrive. The question is around, really the popular theme, this idolatry of being seen as a self-made young person. I made it to the top. I did it all by myself. And that's something as young people we need to let go of if we want to succeed and thrive in this new dispensation we're coming into, where multilateral cooperation is really defining meaningful youth engagement and the presence of youth leadership. We need to recognize that it is possible to win through cooperation in a way that does not make collaborative win less important or less significant than winning as individuals. The problems are literally collaborating with themselves. In quotes, the problems are interwoven, they are linked. And if the problems are collaborating, then we as young people must come together to pool our collective resources in solving this problem. In harnessing our collective strength, it is very imperative to define technology in this context, not just as the application of scientific knowledge for practical use, but identifying and defining technology as the basic, creative, relevant, and practical sustainable solutions to the issues that need to be addressed. That means AI is important, but technology is about what really solves the problem in a creative, simple, and sustainable manner. It doesn't have to be complex to be technology. Men make institutions, and institutions in turn make men. I will further elucidate that within the next 5 years, self-leadership, management, and visioning will be key relevant skills that will propel young leaders, young ambassadors, and young diplomats within this youth multilateralism context into becoming world leaders. Now, what this phrase really means is ability to self-lead first, and then a focus on management in mobilizing teams and in ensuring that processes and systems run concurrently without solely defined on the presence of leadership, as well as visioning. Now, oftentimes when we speak about leadership, which is what a bulk of this conversation and interaction today is going to focus on, what we are actually saying is visioning. We need someone that can think, see, create a solution, go the way, and show us the way. But what we are not saying is, in solving these problems through leadership, it requires visioning, realizing that the future does not belong to a specific set of outliners. It belongs to people that sit down at the table to create, to implement and show others how to implement. So that's what I mean by visioning. Finally, as I draw my keynote to a close, I urge us to recognize the relevance of multilateralism in shaping a new world order. The problems are urgent. However, as young people, we must be very patient with ourselves on our becoming, while also recognizing the urgency in solving the problems as well. The future of youth leadership is in youth networks, and youth multilateralism will thrive on the backbone of healthy youth networks that are built on the principle of trust, youth agency, and safe spaces. Happy International Day, and I look forward to enjoying the rest of the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miss Tolulope. So this is what I mean when I say that young people leading change. I'm sure Miss Tolulope is a young person. I don't know if I'm mistaken, but she is the young in mind. And then
I'm a
look
young
at
person, please. I'm 25.
okay, great. So you see, like look at the nugget of knowledge that Miss Tolulope just shared with us. And for me, one thing that really resonated with me was the part where you mentioned that we need this intergenerational dialogues. There should be transfer of wisdom from the older generation to the newer generation and from the new generation to the old generation, because it is only through knowledge that we can thrive. The part where you said that we need to collaborate among ourselves as young people, I work with young people and I equally work with young people, and I know that sometimes young people want to work alone. They want a situation where they can take all the glory, where we can applaud them that this person did this, it wasn't a cut, but it looks like we are all addressing the same issues. Like there are a lot of young people who are working on education, who are working on gender, who are working on climate. So the question is, how can we come together, put together our resources to be able